So this is it. It's the season finale. Welcome back, everyone. Today, who have we got?
She's giggling and she's Emma Ryan.
She's Emma Ryan. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm nervous.
Yeah.
Really nervous.
You don't need to be nervous. You're fine.
I know.
You've got this.
Fine.
I believe in you.
It's good.
I'm going to throw you under the bus and just tell you, like, give a little mention to all the other podcasts that you turned down. Come on, this one.
I've always kind of been like, oh yeah, possibly, kind of get back to me and maybe, and yeah, I just think it's because people have asked me before and I haven't really known them very well.
Yeah.
Whereas I know you, we've
This is
worked
it.
together plenty, so it felt like it was a good start.
Yeah.
Not that I want to do it all the time. But
Yeah. Is that would you want to go into like doing more? Because you do like go in front of the camera on Instagram and stuff. Like you seem all right doing that. Is that something
what you don't see is when I'm doing a talking video on a camera.
Done it 30 times.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've all been there.
Well, I mean, not always. I used to, but then I think it's that weird feeling of being perceived.
Yeah.
So you're here, perceiving.
Yeah.
Me feeling awkward, and then that makes me awkward. Whereas if I'm sat on my own at home,
Yeah.
that's not the case.
Yeah. I often think, imagine like if that got leaked, like all the takes before,
Oh,
and
honestly.
and they didn't include the final one. It was just all the awkward takes.
This is exactly it. I always think, do Apple have access? Or does Instagram have access to all the videos, all the stories that I've gone? Absolutely not.
Yeah. Oh, well, something I do want to kick off with then is if you had to like sum up the craziest wedding that you've ever been to in a sentence, what would that sentence be? I know it's a bit of an naff question.
I know, it's a really, really hard question because I shoot some really cool weddings. But it's the ones where I end up staying very, very late and having a drink with everyone.
Yeah.
Possibly, getting in at 5
Because you must have some wild stories.
I had a wedding earlier on this year where the bride kind of thrust a vodka and lime and soda into my hand at 9:30 p.m. and was like, "You're staying." I was like,
great.
"Okay, that's
Yeah.
happening." It was a 3-day wedding,
Yeah.
so this is so not one sentence. This is not one sentence. But yeah, so we'd talked about before. I was there. I was going back there the next day. It was a 3-day wedding, so this was a Saturday night, the wedding day, and it got to sort of my finishing time, 9:30 p.m. and she was like, "So you can get an Uber back to the hotel, or you can get back on the bus that's taking all the guests. Are you staying?" I was like, "I absolutely am staying."
Yeah.
I got some banging photos.
This is
I
it,
kept a camera in my hand, flash in the other hand, and it was all good.
There's loads of different ways you can answer that question. I've not actually thought about it from that perspective, but
Yeah.
So what are some like other stories then, like maybe crazy meaning like just a wild wedding in terms of crazy good? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I actually shot one earlier on this year. I think it was maybe like early July, and it was on a Thursday.
Yeah.
And it was a Middleton Lodge, favourite place, super close to home, and I was kind of just expecting it to be like a Thursday wedding.
Yeah.
Like you just have it set in your head that it's midweek,
Yeah.
no one's going to go all out,
Pretty
no
cash,
one's going to go super, super hard on partying and things like that. And then the whole day was just non-stop dancing, fun. They had what was the band called? But basically this guy, as soon as dinner had finished, he was up performing, everyone was dancing around the tables. It was just good. And then the dancing and everything was great. I think it was just a vibe from beginning to end.
Yeah.
On a
wicked.
Thursday. So in terms of like crazy, I think that it was such a good vibe midweek. And I wasn't expecting it. I was just expecting a really, the couple were gorgeous.
Yeah.
I've seen on her Instagram, we've been following each other for a while, seen on her Instagram how gorgeous all her friends were, and seen her go through a hen party, and I was thinking, God, these girls, I think they're gonna party hard, but it's a Thursday.
Yeah. Some of them have work tomorrow. Yeah.
No one was going to work.
Oh, bloody hell.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm gonna roll it back a bit then to like life before weddings. So just take a backtrack a little bit. We've had a glimpse there of tease people with what's to come. But yeah, so I guess what were life like for you before weddings? What were you up to? How did you get into weddings? I appreciate there's about 500 questions
that's
there,
fine.
but you know what I mean. Maybe just start with like, what were you doing before weddings?
Everything. Everything. I think you sent me over a brief list of what you were going to ask. I'm going to get my phone out here. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that.
Yeah, you go for it.
And I think I made a list of all the jobs I've had since I left college.
Oh, no way, really?
Yeah. So,
I can see the list from here, and that's a pretty big list.
Yeah, I was a waitress. I worked at Tesco's. I worked as a baker. I worked in the post office and a newsagent. I worked for local government. I worked for central government. I worked in New Look. I worked in data processing. I worked for the council again, twice. I worked in a chip shop. I worked for my husband's racing business. I worked doing contracts and tenders for an endoscopy company. I worked in a market stall. And probably one of the lowest lows was working in a waste recycling plant where I was just basically sorting rubbish, standing on a conveyor belt, chucking things.
Expand on that.
It was, yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
So how and why do you reckon you had all those jobs then? Like, that's just couldn't find the right thing?
Probably just boredom. I think when I look back now, all of the jobs I performed worse at were always the jobs where the tasks were really super repetitive.
Yeah.
They weren't customer based.
Yeah.
All my favourite jobs were always jobs where I was talking to people. So when I worked in the post office, for example, I had all these little old ladies coming in every day for their pension, and they just wanted a little chat. And
yeah,
there's a lot of kind of that ye oldie sort of old wives' tales about people who worked in the post office always being super grumpy and things like that. Yeah. And, I used to have a little queue of old ladies who would just wait for me because they knew they were going to get a little bit of conversation out of me.
Freshness.
Yeah. And then again, when I worked in the chip shop, one of my favourite ever jobs because it was
free chippy. Surely
there was that as well.
Just sneaking a few chips.
Definitely a good tea at the end of the night, but it was just having the opportunity to chat to people.
Yeah.
Which is now essentially what I do. Is one of my favourite parts of the job I do now.
Yeah.
Is that? But I just, I got fired from one job for going to a wedding and shooting a wedding.
The irony there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
foreshadowing.
I'm almost thankful for that one because I'd booked it off, but not officially through the systems.
Okay.
And then somebody got in there first with like the electronic request to kind of have that day off. So when it came to like 4 weeks before, and I was like, why has this been denied?
Yeah.
And they were like, you didn't put the actual request in. I was like, but you told me I could have it off. And I'd booked a wedding in.
Yeah.
And so I just called in sick that day and then someone ratted me out.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I was sacked. But in hindsight, one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I just don't know whether the same sequence of events would have taken me into weddings as quickly had that not happened.
Yeah, so I guess what my next question is for you then, like, how did you go from sort of like waste management into weddings? Like, where's that bridge? Because that seems, for someone that's like maybe in a similar position, or someone that's like not yet full time in weddings, I guess like that bridge can sometimes be an hard one to cross for a lot of people. So how was that transition for you, and how did you even find out about weddings? And
I think like a lot of people who get into shooting weddings, oftentimes it can almost happen accidentally without the knowledge that was then going to become your career. So I'd bought a little DSLR. It was a Nikon, I think 3500, something like that. Little 55, 17 to 55 kit lens on it, 18 to 55, something like that. And I had a friend in the town I lived in who'd recently bought the same camera or a similar camera at the same time. So we just kind of got to chatting about like photography and stuff. And in the beginning, I mean, it's like, here's the picture of the ladybird I found on a flower. Here's the kids at the park. And we just kind of like trading notes and things like that. And then about maybe 6 months into having this DSLR, probably still on auto, I think. I was still hadn't even grasped the concept of shooting manually. Yeah,
and this was just last year.
Yeah, six months ago. So basically somebody had approached my friend saying, my sister's getting married in 3 weeks. It's a shotgun wedding. we know that you've recently got a camera.
Yeah, lovely pictures of ladybirds.
Yeah, you take really great photos of, you know, your mum's dogs or whatever it was at the time. Will you come and shoot the wedding?
Yeah.
So immediately she kind of contacted me and was like, do you want to do it together? And we charged, I think, for the whole day, £250.
Really, yeah.
We really didn't have a clue. I think we both were like shooting on auto at that point.
Yeah.
Because I'd never done photography full-time, like college, uni, anything like that. So yeah, then it just happened that people saw that wedding, and then we were maybe only doing 3 or 4, if that, maybe 2 or 3 a year together.
Yeah.
So we operated together as a team. And then
into full-time?
So that didn't happen until 2018.
Really?
Yeah.
Quite a long... So what were you doing in the is that when you were doing all these jobs in between?
I never ever kind of gave up working, because again I was charging about £300 for a wedding day. And I was always like, no, I'll never charge loads, you know, I want to be really accessible for people. I think a lot of that talk comes from not having the confidence in your own beliefs.
I think we could talk about that maybe.
In yourself. Yeah,
do you think?
I think so.
I mean, we could segue into that now if you want. I mean, I can always come back to, because I think that's we've just as a little insight, no pun intended, for people. I guess we've had I've had a really few big chats with you about like the charging aspect. Like, you don't have to share prices, by the way. That's not something that I ever ask people to share. So, but yeah, like what is your take on that then? Like, sort of beginning to charge more, and I guess not feeling guilty for it. I guess like what's your thoughts on it?
So I think pricing is super duper personal.
Yeah,
and I don't mean that in the sense that no one should have to tell anybody what they're charging, because I think it's actually great to have open conversations around pricing with your peers, people who you are kind of really close with.
I've seen a massive shift, like in the last, I'm going to say, year to 2 years, of like people actually opening up, photographers, videographers, everyone in between, talking about pricing. Like, I think when I first joined, so I joined in 2017, for me at that time, there was no like information, there was no one sharing like pricing, really. It was quite a hush awkward thing to talk about, and it was very much like capped at like, I'd say if you were charging like
1,200 was
1,500, that were like, oh well, they're charging 1,500, like, and it was like this thing.
I think
so like
that community still exists though.
100%, 100%.
We're in a different bracket of kind of like peers and people who are more open to talking about things. And I think your price often reflects your market. So like, one of my biggest takeaways that I've learned is that a price for me might seem expensive, but I'm not my target audience. And that's the biggest takeaway, I think, probably, is what I've learned recently, to try and like overcome and not think about it too much. Yes.
What would you agree?
Yes. You know, if you've got a brand that you want to put out there and that you want to attract, and the people you want to attract, your pricing has to reflect that. Because if you don't reflect that in your pricing, somebody who is willing to pay a lot of money, and when I say a lot is kind
ranges.
Of completely there's no top or bottom. For some people a lot might be £1,000. To some people a lot might be £10,000.
This is it.
So I think having the confidence to know that you are going to walk into the wedding that you want to shoot, and the people and the vibe and the styling, you've got to be confident walking into that, knowing that you can deliver something that reflects the pricing of the peers that you're working around, the peers that you kind of look up to. Does your work match up to their quality? And yes, that little bit of imposter syndrome is always going to say, no, it doesn't. It's always going to sit there and go, you aren't any good, you're rubbish. There's always that little voice in the back of your head. Of
course there is,
but you have to know, you can't guess. You have to know that you can go in and deliver. Otherwise, you shouldn't be doing it. Where would you place yourself? I'm not going to ask you for pricing, but in terms of the market, I know it's very, very, very broad and it's hard to say, but where would you like to think that you place yourself within the wedding photography market? Again, this is something I think has changed recently, is market prices. So I think
I think the lines are a lot more blurred now.
I think so. I think what might be considered luxury pricing now is probably a whole lot more than what you and I probably are charging.
100%.
I think a few years ago, if I'd have looked at what I'm charging now, I would have gone, no way.
Yeah.
No way would somebody pay that for a wedding.
Yeah.
And people are.
Yeah.
You know, we're getting the clients every single year. And it's not that no way somebody will pay me for that. It's just, again, like you said before, I'm not necessarily my target audience.
Yeah. This is it. It's what it boils down to.
But yeah, I think it's a difficult one. I would say sort of I would say I'm probably in the mid to high range.
Yeah.
I don't like using the word luxury.
Yeah.
I've really found
those,
that. Yeah. I've really found that to become a bit of a buzzword that people use. Luxury, again, is so subjective.
Yeah.
It's so subjective. You can have a luxury wedding on a budget.
100%. Yeah.
I find it a difficult one to use. Yes, has it been used in hashtags that I've put out in the past? Yes, because people will search, for example, that hashtag or that SEO. You know, they'll search that on Google.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily define myself as luxury.
Yeah.
You know, because it's so subjective.
What would you define yourself as then, is the question I'm going to ask you.
Yeah, I find that
Hard one.
I'm being really, really vague. I don't want to be too vague with these answers, but I think in terms of style-wise, I think I'd probably sit somewhere in the middle of a lot of those different categories that people put out there. I try, when I'm shooting someone's wedding, I do not want to go in there and think, I'm just going to take photos of like this super editorial looking stuff. I miss those really, really kind of important emotional moments. I'm an emotional shooter for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily a creative shooter. I shoot for emotions. So I guess maybe I would hope that kind of emotive as a style. I don't know if that works.
No, I think so, definitely. I think you see plenty of like creative photographers.
Yeah. That's not a slate on any of these styles, but I like to kind of go and I do want to take some, what I would maybe consider to be slightly editorial images, because these are the things at the moment are fashionable and people do want them.
Yeah.
But equally they will want in the future to look back on something that isn't maybe a wonky photo that is very fashionable at the moment. There might be something that was blurred. You know, do you want to shoot a whole wedding like that? No. So I try and
and
I don't think that's necessarily a conscious choice.
Right, okay.
You know, I don't go in thinking I'm going to do a bit of this and I'm going to do a bit of that.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think it's really just probably style dependent on the day.
Yeah.
Dependent on the couple.
In the moment.
In the moment. Like I say, I'm an emotional shooter, so I really have to go in terms of, for me, what that vibe of that day is telling me to do.
Yeah. I love that answer. That's really nice. Good answer, yeah. This is getting thrown around a lot at the minute on the internet around like timeless photography or timeless videography. And it's been said by a mate of mine, so Ben Tyngate said it recently at Coda, nothing is really timeless.
No.
Because, and that's a great thing. It's not a negative thing. People think that it's like this like really negative thing is something's not timeless, but nothing's truly timeless.
No.
And really
totally
what we do is really like a time capsule. It's capturing a moment in time.
That is exactly. So I actually use the word timeless a lot in my website.
I've used it and I still use it, hashtags.
But I totally agree. For me, it's not necessarily that the imagery is timeless, because I want to be able to look back at my wedding photos in 30 years and think, that was fashionable then. It's not now.
It's not now,
You know, that's, I mean...
But that's what you do when you look at your parents or your grandparents. Like, you look at it and you think, God, look at it then, how different it were. Nothing's truly... It is really a time capsule. It captures the moment in time.
It's the moments that transcend time, not the style.
Yeah, the emotion side of it,
And because trends will always come and go, fashion will always come and go.
Yeah.
We see the same trends in fashion, especially when it comes to weddings or kind of styling. They come around and they come out. I've been doing this now long enough to have seen lace come and go 3 or 4 times. Or, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or gypsophilia used in wedding displays. That was really unfashionable a few years ago, and it's back in a huge way now. It won't be long before it's gone again. You know, I was baby's breath, I think they call it over in the States.
Is it? Is it? Yeah. Yeah, we do have some people from the States listening. There we go.
That's for all you.
Yeah. All 3 of them. Yeah.
So I think, like you say, it's moments that transcend time. And when I say I'm an emotional shooter, that is what I'm there for. I really hugely focus on just those moments, those really kind of special little moments, as without as much interference as possible.
I guess then I'm going to move on now to something a little bit more light-hearted, hopefully. So maybe not though. So I'm gonna ask you, have you got any nightmare experiences working with videographers? Because I know the people that listen to this, I do think it's a fair split, to be honest. I do think there's a lot of photographers listen to it, so it'll be interesting for them. It's not always videography talk. So yeah, have you had any like properly nightmare? Don't say no. She's shaking her head.
There's not been anything particularly.
Me last week.
Yeah, always you.
Yeah.
What a knob. No, there's not been anything particularly horrendous, but I think I really try and be as personable on the day, and I really try and work with people on the day. Yeah. There was one I shot a few years ago, and it was just post-COVID, and the videographer had a team of about 6.
6?
Yeah, and there was, when I say cameras everywhere, I understand you guys need your angles. Like
we love them.
Well, because you can't man every, do you know what I mean? You can't man every camera all the time. There need to be kind of like set going for speeches and things. But it was like, it was a lot. It was
crazy,
a lot.
And
there was a person manning every camera, and then there was one guy taking photos all day, which I found...
That's odd.
Yeah. But again, I'm quite an easygoing person.
Yeah,
so
you are.
Yeah. Was it great? No.
Yeah.
I could see the bride and groom weren't enjoying it at all. And they were getting them to recreate a lot of things that had already happened.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was like she would walk over to get her flowers from the florist, and then they would like interrupt and be like, can you just do that again, but just walk with your head up?
Were these videographers someone that are they very popular in the industry or not? I'm just trying to guess it might be.
A lot of fun. I don't think you would guess.
Okay.
I'd never heard of them
okay,
before.
Fair enough.
It doesn't mean they're not good, and their work was beautiful. Their work was great. I think, but even by the end of bridal prep, being asked to do something over and over again.
Yeah, that's not good, is it?
Were already coming naturally. Yeah. And I just think you weren't prepared for that.
Yeah. Especially with your style, like
but they were nice. They were nice people. Like,
yeah. It's one of them. It's tricky. Probably just like, I think sometimes couples just can get it wrong in terms of like picking video and photo that work well together. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they get it really bang on and it works in harmony because that's how it should be. Yeah. And then sometimes I just think they probably see a style, they like it, and they don't. Obviously, they're not going to think, how is that going to work on the day? They're not thinking about that because you wouldn't, would you?
Yeah, but no, I mean, I'm quite lucky. I tend to work with a lot of the same videographers over and over again, mainly because, and I know you'll know this, a lot of the time people will book photo first unless they've already seen a videographer maybe who's shot their friend's wedding who they think, I definitely want that person. A lot of the time, you know, the recommendations come via photographers or a planner who then usually tends to put the same people together because they've seen them work well. I think it's
styles, isn't it?
And I think so. I think it tends to be a lot of people who have got quite a hands-off approach. Yeah. Because even though I'm quite a big personality, especially on a wedding day, I'm not a shy and retiring photographer. I am there. You'll know I'm there. You know, I'm not like, hi, look at me. Yeah. But I really want people to feel comfortable. And I
think the right word for you is, I was thinking about this before we started this. I think I would say you're like an expert integrating it into a bridal party.
Oh, pro.
Or like
I love it.
Groomsman. Like, you are like really good at integrating yourself and like finding your little place. Like, I feel like maybe that comes from, one, your personality, but two, I would say the role of a photographer as well is very much more, you've got to be a little bit more present than a videographer.
100%.
And I think the nature of what a photographer does, just by like taking a few snaps, not knocking what you do. I know there's skill to it.
I said this to you the other day.
Yeah.
I can literally just walk up to a church, take 2 photos, 3 photos.
Well, you taking like,
and then I'm done.
Yeah, you turn around
and you're stood there, you know, you're still filming, and I'm like, just waiting patiently.
And that's my one shot, 10 seconds of just waiting.
And it's just, that's how it is.
It's just the nature of it, So like, I always find it, so I would like to be a little bit more involved, but then, in terms of like,
you're a personable person.
I do like to get involved where I can, and I do try. But then a lot of the time, I feel like I can't because I'm holding the shot, and if I talk, I'm gonna have people looking at me, and you know, it's all that side.
I never thought about that.
Yeah,
so like if you make a comment, people are gonna be like, huh? Oh.
Yeah, and obviously trying to hold the camera still, and you kept trying to wait there 10 seconds and capture the moment of the or whatever you're trying to capture. That was laughing for
see, it's having me there bringing all the
yeah.
Gives you those
just an advert for Emma, this is. Flipping heck. That's great. For the photographers listening, could you, this might be boring, I don't know if,
ask away.
But we'll ask it anyway. I always ask it's about gear. So could you tell us the gear that you use to shoot a wedding?
Yes, I'm not a massive gearhead, but I don't think many like female, like us girlies tend not to be.
Yeah.
So I use, for my harness, I use a spider belt, which if you are getting back problems or like sore shoulders, or you're just getting old and creaky in the joints like I am, the spider belt harness is incredible because everything, all that weight just sits right on the centre of gravity. It's so good. And plus you feel a little bit like Lara Croft, like every time you click the cameras out. So then I shoot use Sony. I'm a Sony photographer, so that might be a boo and a hiss from a lot of the.
I think that's going to be a big congratulations from most of the videographers listening to this.
So I have an A9 and an A7R3, and then lenses. I shoot Sony lenses, 24, 35, 50, 85.
Nice.
And I have a giant bum bag, so I can switch my lenses out through the day.
Yeah.
I'm far too indecisive to just pick two. And
do you have all your lenses in there as well then?
Yeah.
Because there'll be two on your camera.
That's why it's so massive.
Yeah, there's two on your cameras, then two in there as well.
Yeah.
All right, that's good then. Yeah.
I mean, so depending on the day. So most of the time, I know I might not need my 24 until it gets later on, or group shots, things like that.
Yeah.
But mostly 85 is always sat in there.
Yeah. Do you use your 24 on the dance floor?
Yes.
Is that what you use that for?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then sometimes in bridal prep and things,
if it's tight,
things are super tight.
Yeah.
I just don't. It's not my favourite for.
The
look.
So that's really interesting. So for me, I've really gone off the 24 recently because I used to be a big 24 guy. I still use it for gimbal stuff and details and wider room establishes, I guess. But for like most of the time, I find it just a little bit too wide. The only time I find it really good is on a dance floor, where I find like a 35 too tight sometimes for a dance floor.
Yeah,
because you want to get in the mix.
Sure. Yeah, and I am in the mix.
You are in the mix. Yeah, you better believe she's dancing.
I'm on it. Like I'm there. I'm with everyone. And then I shoot with. I have a V1 flash on one camera, and then I have like a little handheld. I think it's an AD100, the new Godot's kind of a handheld
I think it looks
one.
like a gun.
It looks like a ray gun.
Yeah.
And then I shoot that kind of for off-camera flash. And again, I have that kind of hanging on me at all times as well. So
again, Lara Croft making an appearance.
It's giving full-on Tomb Raider vibes.
Yeah. My next one is: do you have any like pro tips or any advice around people getting into the industry? Obviously photographers, so any advice or tips?
Anyone getting into the industry, I think, is my biggest tip is always go to style shoots. There's a lot of like ums and ahs about people using a lot of style shoot content in portfolios, and whilst I don't think that's the best way to showcase what you're able to do in terms of work, what it will do is it will connect you to some really, really incredible people.
Yeah. That's a good way to look at it, because it's been spoken about a lot on the pod, like style shoots and workshops and stuff. But that
style shoots, workshops and things like that.
Yeah.
I just think it's an invaluable tool in meeting other people in this industry.
Yeah.
And without a doubt, I would not be where I am today without the people.
It's the connections.
The people that I have met at workshops, things like that. It's invaluable.
Yeah. I think it has been spoken about before, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but my thing with workshops and style shoots is the fact that obviously it's great for your portfolio, it's great to see what you can do given the perfect scenario, but as you well know, weddings are not the perfect scenario.
No, never.
99% of the time.
No.
But so I guess if people are booking off the back of seeing something that's shot in perfect light and a perfect model couple and a really expensive dress and amazing flowers, when you're shooting a wedding that's maybe like not that,
you're in a barn,
in Yorkshire,
marquee, in November,
then like that's when I think that those newbies will probably struggle a lot.
Yes, that's where the connections come in. A lot of people who are more established will not take on second shooters who haven't shot either a wedding with them before, or that they've not met them.
Yeah.
So if you've worked alongside people at a styled shoot or a workshop who I thought, I really like that person.
Yeah.
They need a second shooter. They've seen what you've produced in the same environment as what they've been in.
Yeah.
That is such a great space to meet people to second shoot for.
Yeah, 100%.
And there will always be somebody who is just that kind of step ahead of you in terms of where they are with their wedding, like kind of abilities, what they can do and what they can shoot. And they'll be oftentimes happy to take on a second shooter who is newer, because they might not be kind of as, super far into their careers as well.
Yeah.
That is when you get the experience of learning. Do not be DMing photographers to second shoot when, you've only got a portfolio of kind of just style shoot workshops. Meet people, network, connect. The amount of messages, that I know other photographers get, I get as well, kind of saying, oh, hi, here's my portfolio. I'd love to second shoot for you sometime. And it's like, I look and there's been no interaction prior to that.
Yeah.
There's been nothing.
Yeah.
Whereas I've got...
It's almost just like cold calling.
Completely. Whereas I've got, I've got built relationships with people purely via Instagram who I would say I'm now friends with.
Yeah.
For me, it's the style shoots, the workshops, like the networking events, anything like that is so super crucial. And it really feels like you're speculating to accumulate in terms of like throwing money, paying for something that you're thinking, when am I going to see a comeback from this? It will happen. If you are good enough, it will happen. But don't go into sort of shooting style shoots and then charging £6,000 for a wedding day. It doesn't work like that. But as long as you're charging what you're capable of, and people know that this has come from a style shoot, or I'm always really honest. Like I'll say like an editorial at wherever, or shooting this, that, and the other.
I am seeing, and this is no knock to photographers, but I feel like it's probably easier to get away shooting a styled shoot or a workshop and then putting it online as though it's a real wedding from a photographer perspective than a video. And whilst I don't mind that, it doesn't bother me. I don't, I personally, I don't care less. Like, do what you want, advertise, it's great. But I think from like a couple's perspective, if they're stumbling across that and seeing that and thinking that that's a real wedding, I don't think it's as a big of an issue if you're already established and you're already shooting weddings similar to that. But if you're newish and you're advertising, do you know what I'm trying to say? If you're fairly new and the rest of your portfolio is a bit, just like say like run of the mill, average, good, and then you're posting this like workshop or styled shoot that's like amazing and it's got all this thing, and then but you're not saying that it is.
Yes.
And then couples are booking off the back of that.
Many.
That feels a bit misleading to me. I don't know if that's just like me just being...
I don't know many photographers who will not state that either it was a styled shoot or a workshop. A lot of people are really excited to share that they've been to this thing and that they've created this, work.
Yeah.
I don't know many people who do that. I'm sure there are people who are just there sharing the odd picture here and there. I mean, I guess especially on a website, you can't be crediting the fact that it was a workshop. But again, I think as long as you're really honest, and for couples as well, should be looking through galleries. Yeah. Full galleries, not just editorial workshops.
Yeah.
That's the crux of it. If a couple is booking somebody without seeing their portfolio, and then it doesn't turn out like the styled shoot pictures that photographer has, is it on that photographer as much as it's a couple should also be doing their research.
Just to go back a bit, because I've just remembered a question I'm going to ask you. So if like a photographer is feeling really nervous about getting into the industry, have you got any advice on that? So like obviously you mentioned we sort of talked about them just like getting into it, second shooting or shooting their own weddings and like putting the hours in almost. What about if like there's a photographer that's wanting to get into it, has done a little bit of it but is feeling a bit like nervous, or like any advice on that? Because I know it's very easy for videographers to be just, right, let's just get into it and we'll just lean on the photographer all day. Even if we're kind of a shyer person, like I know that there's many videographers out there that do just heavily lean on the photographer and won't say a word, and then they get away with it by saying, this sounds, I'm having a diss on videographers, I'm not meaning it like that.
I get it.
But it's like they'll advertise themselves as like very fly on the wall documentary and they don't want to get involved, but sometimes I feel like that's a cop out.
Yes, I agree.
Although
I don't mind that, really.
Really?
I don't mind that. I really don't. I just think, I think partly because we're going off topic, but I think partly because when I'm like for example, doing couples portraits, things like that, I always try and get some movement involved, knowing that there's a videographer next to me.
Yeah. That's actually a question I want to ask you, actually. So I think there'll be videographers out there that might be interested in hearing this. So when videographers are saying, we just want a little bit of something with movement in, is that annoying for a photographer?
No, well,
I know it depends on style and all that sort of stuff, but so yourself, is that annoying?
So I'm quite movement oriented. I'm never sure which word that is.
Movement motivated, we'll go with that.
But in terms of like photos, I'd much rather keep a couple walking, moving, as it relaxes them, especially at first. And then if I do kind of ask them to stand still, I'm always asking them to, if they're holding hands or if someone's got their arm, give that arm a little rub. Even if their faces are close together, which I don't do an awful lot of, but rub noses or like kind of like just nuzzle in, or pick 5 places on her face to kiss. Now like that is, for me, like those prompts, I can shoot the exact moments I want of that, and then you can also then get that footage. I
guess for you can really then cherry pick a moment, whereas for video we kind of need that moment, because we need the walking, so that works.
I always try and push. Just
leaning back from the mic.
I always try and push movement wherever I can, especially if I'm working with the videographer, because I know then, because that impacts on a couple, having to redo something with movement. I would much rather, for the couple, it's not for me. It's not even really for the videographer. Videographer. It's for the couple. So it doesn't impact their experience.
Double question here. So there's 2 questions in one.
Not like you.
Not like me at all. So first, number 1 is, how often would you say these days you're working with a videographer? Like, what's the percentage? And 2, out of that percentage, how does it differ then? So when you're solo shooting, and I don't mean like, I mean like when you're just not with a videographer, how does that differ when you're with a videographer than when you are with them? It's lonely. It's lonely. Is it?
Yeah, I really prefer working with a videographer, especially if it's somebody, I consider friend, or somebody I've kind of chatted with on Instagram in the past. Oftentimes it's guys. There isn't a lot of kind of female videographers out there.
It is funny how there's like a bit of a split there. There's like a masculine version of being like in the wedding industry. You have to be a videographer.
I don't know why that is.
It's weird.
I think even if you get husband and wife photo video teams, often seems to be the guys that lean towards doing the video.
Because it's bloody harder, that's why.
No, I genuinely think it's part of it is because it's that taking the lead thing. It's that, I think, especially around brides and bridesmaids. I generally think women are probably a little bit better at generating those natural moments.
I agree 100%. I think that's the truth of it. I think a wedding is, this sounds really weird to say this, but I think a wedding is quite a feminine thing. Like, is that weird to say that? Like, no, I feel like it's quite and a lot of the influence of the day is often, not always, but often led by the bride. And I feel like she's obviously in charge of the guests and the bride and the plans, and then the photographer, also being a woman, can just have a little bit more rapport, I think. Not always, and obviously I know there's men and women that do both sides of video and photo, but I think that's probably why that is often like the majority, For
me, I think the best, I don't necessarily I don't know a lot of kind of male photographers, but a lot of the ones that I do know who I really, really like and respect have come from like a fashiony background. Whereas that which kind of leads into the ability to shoot something from the female gaze. So I think there's a huge difference. Oftentimes I could tell you immediately, just from looking at a photo, whether it was a man or a woman who took it.
I only found out about this female gaze thing recently, and I was speaking to my missus about it and saying I don't know like what that even would mean. So she gave me her answer, but I'm interested to hear what your answer is about the female gaze. So
personally, I would much rather, as a woman, be perceived by another woman positively than by a man positively.
Okay.
So it leads into the whole, there's a big thing at the moment saying women dress for other women. We don't dress for men.
Oh, really?
Like walking into a bathroom on a night out and having 15 girls, or even just one girl compliment you, or compliment your outfit or your hair, is, to me, a much better hype and a much better feeling than it is to walk out and have 5 guys kind of...
wolf whistling.
Or, just pass comments or, try and make comments and things like that. And I think that applies to weddings. I think we see things differently.
Yeah.
We see femininity differently.
Yeah.
What we experience as femininity is different to what men see as feminine.
Yeah, I think that's true, yeah.
And I think a lot of the time we photograph that better. There are exceptions, and there are some incredibly talented, talented
it's
male
probably even
photographers that I know and I get on really, really well with. So it does feel a bit general, but I do think in general we make more... We're better at emotionally handling a day as well, and handling people on a day.
There's probably a little bit there as well about maybe insecurities. I think like some women photographing women will know about posture and they'll know not to get that angle, and whereas maybe a bloke necessarily might not saying that they all will, but
and this is it. The amount of kind of things I see, this is when I say I can tell by when something's been shot by a man is by the angle it's been shot at. Guys like to get low. They're on the floor. They're lying down in a church. They're using it. They're balancing their phone to get a reflection. And I just think, I mean, don't get me wrong, that's people's art and that's their craft and that's what they want to do, and people are paying for it. That is great, because that's all that matters is that your client loves your work. But 100% I see a huge difference in the majority of male photographers' work versus female photographers. But in terms of like video, again, it's difficult to judge that because I don't know.
Video would be a little bit more difficult, I feel,
because I don't know enough female videographers. I think 2 that I know of personally.
Obviously, you've put it out there before and you have spoken about it on your Insta about ADHD.
Yes.
And so I just thought it'd be interesting to have a little chat about it, because I don't actually think that I've officially, whether it needs an official, wow, here we go. But like, I recently, last year, found out diagnosed with ADHD. So I kind of would just like to chat with you, because I think it's an interesting chat to have, because I feel like a lot of people in the industry have got this. I was at Coda recently and there were a lot of talk there, people jokingly chucking like, oh, it's my ADHD brain, or like people chucking that around.
It's become the new, or that's my OCD.
Yeah.
You just like to line your shampoo up in the bath. It's not OCD, pal.
Yeah. So I just thought it'd be like a nice, I think that's going to be like the main chat of the day, if you don't mind, if you're happy to talk about it.
I don't mind at all.
So I guess let's talk about the negatives first, because that's what people want to hear, don't they? How does like your ADHD affect the job?
Well, I mean, I think the way it affects my job is probably the same way that it affects my everyday life. In motivation to do things. Yeah. Not wanting to take a nap in the middle of the day. But no, in all seriousness. There we
go.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Why did that sound wrong? The funny thing is, it's negatively, I find it difficult to kind of talk negatively about it, because I really only try and spin it positively, because after being diagnosed in 2018, it was like, it was an epiphany. It wasn't just a little light bulb moment. It was an explanation for my entire...
It's a weird feeling. I mean, we've spoken about this over Instagram, and like, I think for the first, I would even say even now, like, it's really funny because Tash, she would often say things like, I really think that you've got ADHD, Harrison. And I'm like, nah, of course I am. It's just how I am. It's just how I am. And I think that's what people say. Then people start saying, oh, that's how my parents are. Like, my parents are like
it's
that.
Like shock horror.
And then all of a sudden you think, wait, as soon as like when you do get the diagnosis, you're like, Dad, I've got something to tell you, mate.
Honestly, I wish to God my dad was still here for me to send him for a diagnosis. Because without a doubt, he was like taking a toaster apart at 9 years old kind of guy. He was an engineer, he was Mr. ADHD. But I think kind of impacts negatively is the tax that comes with ADHD, and people have talked about it in the past. It's a tax that's mental, physical, financial. It impacts a lot.
It's serious, and I think that's what people don't see. People still think of ADHD as like
whimsical,
a lad, a nutty lad in a classroom that's just going a bit crazy, and he's got spiky hair and he's throwing shit around.
He's throwing a chair at the teacher.
And that that was never me. So
my son also has ADHD, and he's probably, I would say, quite a similar person to you, quite that laid back, chill, almost in his own little world some of the time.
Yeah. So it's really funny. I mean, even when you stem it right back. So when I was going through the diagnosis phase, they were obviously wanting to look at like school reports. They were asking me mum questions, and all the things that they were sort of talking about, and all the stuff in the school reports were like, Harrison is such a nice lad, but he just gets distracted way too easy.
Same.
If he put his focus onto this, he'd be really good at it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's really funny because when I was growing up, the big thing in schools was autism. So like everyone were like obsessed with autism, and I feel like ADHD now is a thing, and people are talking about it more, so people are recognizing it earlier. But I feel like there's so many people my age and older that are just completely missed,
walking around with no idea.
Yeah. And I remember when I got the diagnosis come through, I mean the doctor even said, it really made me laugh, because she even said to me, basically, she went, I diagnosed you within the first 5 minutes of speaking to you. She didn't tell me that until after. And then she'd be like, she said, like, basically I got a score back of like a percentage of like what you rated and how likely you were to have it. I think I scored 96% on that, which is the highest I've ever scored on a test, by the way. But yeah, so it was just like, that is crazy. And it's sort of my initial response were quite, I were a bit pissed off, and I felt like I'd been robbed a bit.
Yes,
I feel like,
robbed. 100%.
Yeah.
I can't agree more. It's robbed of moments.
Yeah.
As a child, robbed of an education that you could have had that you didn't. Not that you're not educated, but what I mean is,
I know what you mean.
The amount of education,
the struggle. Yeah, like I went through school feeling like I was thick, and as any parents would, they'd be like, I was always quite a creative kid, typical type of thing, like with ADHD, I think, and. Yeah, it's like it were always, you're clever in different ways. Like that were always the talk and the sort of saying. But yeah, I mean, you look back and there's all these things you can like analyze everything, but like, yeah, when it comes to this job, I mean, for me personally, like I struggle with the isolation side of it.
Yes.
Really struggle with that. Yeah. But is that something you struggle with?
Yeah, I think I've kind of found my ways around that, and I know we've spoken about this before. I oftentimes, after I've dropped my kids off at school, I go for a coffee. Yeah. Just a local coffee shop in town. I know enough people in there to kind of have a little chit chat. There's a little group of kind of old men that I've taken to sitting with, and they, we have a good little, and they're not really old. They'd probably kill me if they ever heard this. But it's just enough to build up my social battery for the day, to then go sit in silence. I mean, not silence, I always have to have kind of something going on in the background, but to just go sit on my own. But then I have to kind of set 20-minute timers. I have to get up, make myself a coffee. Yeah. Go to the loo, because I will not go to the loo for hours. I will literally cripple myself in thinking, just finish this one. No, wait, just finish this one. Finish this one. And then, before you know it, it's been 2 hours and you think, oh my God, I'm going to burst. But it's those kind of things that people don't realise. It's forgetting to eat. Yeah, that's a massive one for me. Like, Tash will come in and she'll say, what are your treats? And I go, nothing, no. Yeah, or it's 2 Twixes and a bag of crisps because it was immediately available. Yeah, that's it, just needing something. Yeah. I'm a sucker for a pot noodle, just because of how quick that is. Anything that involves, a microwave for me is a big task. So, like, I agree. Cooking something is like just... Even toast for me during the day feels like a massive effort. And tedious and messing around, Cereals is great. That's a good one. I think that's definitely got to be a huge part of it, is like the loneliness, like the lack of self-awareness, being able to being aware of your cues of your own body. So you need to go to the bathroom, you need to eat. People don't realize that these are huge things that really impact your life, because then it gets to 4 p.m. and your eyes are like blinking tired because you haven't eaten, you haven't nourished your body, you haven't listened to yourself. It's crazy. It is really crazy. I used to get, before, when I was going through really big down spells, kind of before I was doing like photography more, I would go through phases where, that even just having the idea of getting up and having a shower was like a lot of work. I would still do it, but it's the process. And I think what a lot of people don't realise about ADHD is we break everything into steps.
Yeah.
So for what most people would think
I was talking about this with someone recently, and they were like, mate, that is insane. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They were like, why did you not just do it? And I'm like, because of what you've just said.
Yeah.
Because it's a process of, I've got to get up, I've got to walk there, and I've got to do it. And
I've got to then get undressed, then I've got to feel cold, and then I've got to make sure the temperature's right, and then I've got to, once I'm in there, I could be in there, oh my God, I could be in here for an hour, and then I have to get out, and I have to feel cold again, and then, oh my God, I have to dry my hair. And for what a lot of people might seem as just, I'm going for a shower, for me, or even making a coffee, it's a lot of tasks. It's opening a cupboard.
Yeah.
Then I've got to, that's why I'm like, a coffee's great, because there's less steps to making a coffee than there is to making a tea. There's no waiting.
Yeah.
There's no tea bag to squeeze out, and it's those things that do impact your life and how you then see processes. However, there is a bonus to seeing life like this, because you will always find the fastest way of doing something.
Yeah.
Always.
Shortcuts.
I think...
Which is good and bad, I would say, in my experience. But yeah, I think the thing that is great about it is problem-solving ability.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people that are in the wedding industry probably are good at the jobs, because if something goes wrong on a wedding day, I'm fairly confident.
Crisis management.
I'm just able to... Everything else is forgotten about, and I'm like honed in, and I'm like, right, to do that, and it's done, and I can get it done.
Same. I've fixed dress zips. I've with cable ties. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't even think how many things now where it's been one of those things that even planners or coordinators have been thinking, how are we gonna? And I'm like, done.
Do this,
It's done immediately.
Yeah.
And then crisis management, 100%. Being emotionally astute.
Yeah.
So being able to read
that's a good point.
When you need to stand back.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether part of that comes from the trauma of growing up with undiagnosed ADHD.
Yeah.
So then you become a target for a lot of unkind words or low levels of praise as a child. You then become really emotionally astute at reading when somebody's walking into a room. You think, are they here to tell me off for something or whatever?
Yeah.
And I think years of that will then...
Yeah.
trauma-based make you become really good at reading people.
Yeah.
Oh, and I
100%.
genuinely don't think the high levels of empathy with people with ADHD is because it's a natural part of ADHD.
Yeah, interesting.
I could be wrong, but I genuinely think it's because we've had to get so used to reading the cues of people that we've probably disappointed at some point, or thought we've disappointed. That we get really, really used to that. I mean, I had, one bride who I noticed was having a huge panic attack on the day. I really don't want to go into any details because it was a horrible moment for her. And this was in the morning, and she was really, really struggling. And she was saying nothing. She didn't say anything, but I could see it.
Yeah.
And her mum and her sisters, they could see it too. And I think it's probably something that she, and her bridesmaids as well, she'd maybe struggled with in the past. And another photographer might not have actually recognised what was happening as a panic attack.
Yeah.
And I just put my camera down, away from me, nowhere near me on the bed.
Yeah.
And I just sat chatting to her mum and her bridesmaids and her sisters. And her mum had messaged me years later, thanking me. She's like, I never got a chance to thank you for what you did on the day. She didn't tell me what it was that I did. She didn't need to. She knew. I knew. I don't even know if the bride knew or noticed because of the moment that she was in.
Yeah.
But I think it's moments like that that we're really, really good at picking up on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really good.
It is one of those things. It's a blessing and a curse. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm still going through phases, so it's interesting you mentioned, just to go back a little bit, about the sort of the downer, that you mentioned, like. At the minute, my emotions are really up and down, and that's really affecting editing. Mm-hmm. Not to get into it too much, but I've had a lot of personal things happening, family grievances and things like that. So it's been a bit of a tricky roller coaster ride of a year, and then navigating that with this I guess fresh new discovery. It's not that fresh, but it still feels fresh to me.
It's new, very new.
Only a year of knowing that you've got something. Not that your life changes, but you start picking up on things and you think, why? like, why has this not ever been picked up before? And it is just a really strange thing. And it's all for me, it's quite draining, the education of like learning it all, like learning these new terms, and like we mentioned body doubling, we've mentioned about that previously, like about off air.
Having somebody to sit with editing is, you know, even if my husband, because he obviously works during the day, but you know, sometimes he's kind of home early, if he's in the house,
productivity's up.
I am working hard. And it's going back to that feeling of being perceived,
which is weird, because most people would be the opposite, I feel. Like if Tash is in all day and I know that she's not doing anything, she's just chilling downstairs, that's all she has to be doing, just doing nothing really, doing pots, doing tea, just sat there watching Netflix. I know that I can be sat up there and I'm working really well.
But that comes with it's the fear of being perceived.
Interesting.
So it's that, I was saying to you before, I don't know if you were recording then, it's, you know, I'm happy to talk on my phone and to my camera on Instagram because there's no one there, but the moment I'm in a room with, like, for example, you're perceiving me, and then it's that internal panic of how am I being perceived by other people. And I know that a lot of other people, again, this is probably anecdotal things, but a lot of people with ADHD, ADHD and autism really struggle with the idea of being perceived. That's interesting. Therefore, you are more likely to work harder
to be liked, almost.
I don't know if it's to be liked. It's just some sort of internal.
That's my thing, maybe. Like, I always want to be like liked.
It's the fear of, you know, your wife thinking he's sat at home all day doing nothing. So it's not necessarily to be liked, but it's the internal reward that you're getting then from her knowing you're working hard.
And it's all a scenario that probably doesn't exist. That's the weird thing with it.
100%.
But to us, it really is real. Like, it's a real thing. And I feel like when you really, you know, I feel like conversations like this are made for, like, you know, 1 a.m. when you're like having a bit of a crisis and you really view things in a different way. But like, for people that are just listening to this driving along in a car, maybe going to a wedding or whatever, they're going to be thinking, that haven't got ADHD, they'll be thinking this sounds like a lot of fluff, but it is like really, it's difficult, and it's really is difficult. A true thing. Like, it's really weird. Like,
I think you touched on it earlier on when you said, you know, you just thought it was your personality, or it was your, you know, that was how you were.
We were talking about it before,
and I think it was my psychiatrist had actually said to me, and I feel like it was a trick question. He was like, but what if this is just your personality? When we were talking, we were having, you know, going through the diagnosis process, what if all of these things that you've listed off are just your personality? I was like, well, isn't that the point? Isn't that the point? That the thing is, if it's something that I'm going through that's a temporary feeling, it wouldn't become my personality. It would, you know, it wouldn't be me. And that's what I am, because I'm not defined by it, but it's shaped who I am as a person.
100%.
It shaped the way I run my business.
Everything,
and it's, for me, it's in this industry, it's a blessing to have, I think.
Do you?
Yeah,
See,
I do.
I don't know if it's because it's fairly new for me, but I at the minute, I feel like it's the blessing side is maybe the spontaneous creativity, the interacting with people. Like, I feel like all that side's pretty good, but the negatives for me are pretty strong. The thing that's funny as well to mention is, like, when you look at people saying like, oh, but like, I have certain symptoms and stuff like that, and I do have this and that, and I can't remember who actually said this, and someone, like, I don't know if I want to butcher this completely, probably am, but someone was saying, like, you could have symptoms of certain things but still not be that thing.
So
and,
like everyone,
the ups and downs of ADHD are really drastic compared to like a normal, like, so for the example is like, oh, well, I get depressed as well, or I get down about this as well, and it's like, for someone that's sort of not got ADHD, not nowhere near it, I'll have ups and downs, and then for the audio listeners, this is like a small wave. But then with people with ADHD, it's like huge ups and downs, and like massive highs, and whoa, I can defeat the world.
Almost bordering on that. I don't know.
Insane.
Or like that kind of bipolar high, low, high, low, and which is why it's often one of those things that it's a common cross mixed diagnosis or misdiagnosis. And I think a huge part of it is, well, you were saying before, we all forget where you've put your keys sometimes.
Yeah, that's another one.
But you don't have Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
So you can have, and a lot of the traits of ADHD are human traits.
Yeah.
A lot of people have moments where they are hyperactive. A lot of people have moments where they daydream. A lot of people have moments where they forget an appointment or forget to pay a parking fine. If you are living that life consistently and it is affecting your everyday life, that's when it becomes like a disorder.
Yeah.
It's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It's not a disorder if it only affects you every now and then.
Yeah.
And, like I said before, it used to be, I like to have my shoes lined up, I've got OCD.
Yeah.
When we really do know that the symptoms of OCD are all consuming every day.
Yeah.
People struggle massively.
Yeah.
And having ADHD is exactly the same. It's every single aspect of your life is affected, whether or not it's zoning out during a conversation that you really want to be paying attention to.
Yeah.
You really, really want to be paying attention to. For me, it's like making eye contact with people, I find really difficult because the moment I make eye contact, my brain goes,
don't overdo it.
Don't overdo it.
I do the same
Don't
thing.
think about making eye contact too much.
Yeah.
Are they looking at my eyes or are they looking at my mouth? Is my mouth moving weird when I'm talking? I often look to the side when I'm talking to people because I can't get the thoughts out of my head whilst I'm looking in somebody's eyes. I'm very aware that I'm looking in their eyes now.
This conversation's opposite each other.
Do this with like baseball caps on.
Just down. Look away from the camera.
It'd be really, really interesting for the people who are watching on video, us staring at a table.
Turn the lights off.
But that is, again, something that's huge for me because then I think, oh my God, I'm looking to the side too much. Do they think I'm lying? Which side is it? If you look to the left, does that mean you're lying?
Which one? Which one?
And all of these thoughts are happening whilst somebody is introducing themselves to me.
Yep.
And I've forgotten their name after 10 seconds. I haven't even heard it. I haven't even heard their name. And that is difficult.
Yeah.
It happens less on wedding days, though, than it does in my real life because I am... I'm on it on a wedding day. I can't explain the difference in how I act and behave on a wedding day to maybe if I was at a party and meeting with someone for the first time.
It's sort of, I think, the hyper focus side of it maybe, where you just switched on and you're just in the zone. And I think that, again, going back to the pros and the cons, what we were on about, that for me is a huge pro. Like I feel like on a wedding day, similar to what we were saying before, I am just on it. Like I know that I'm 10 steps ahead and I'm just on it. Like I'm focused.
But the consequences of that are the next day.
Yeah.
When
100%.
you have given
everything.
It's something I learned as well recently is that, you used to hear people say like, give it your all, give it 100%. Yeah. And the way I've always perceived that is to be, give it 100% of your entire being. 150%, in fact. That's what I'm going to give it. I'm going to go over and above and give it 150%. And then
I want to be seen to be giving it. Not even just doing it. I want to be seen to be doing it.
What that really means is if you've only got 80% to give
in the tank,
then you give 80%.
Yeah.
You don't have to give 100 and then make yourself sick or make yourself overtired.
Yeah, such a good point.
And I think we tend to do that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you talk about the hyperfocus. This is something for me that I love, is my passion for learning something new. When I probably don't need to be learning it. A couple of years ago now, I thought I'm going to change website providers.
Yep.
The one that I'm using isn't giving me what I really want for my website. I kind of wanted to elevate it a little bit. So I checked with a couple of friends and I was like, how long did it take you guys to build your website? I think because I was using Wix or something super simple, super duper simple. How long does it take you guys to build your website? And they were like, well, a couple of months. I was just kind of like putting bits on it here and there, working whilst I was doing, and I was like, right, a couple of months. Okay. And then I built it that night. I stayed up till 4:00 in the morning and I had a brand new website with, the next day.
Yeah.
And it looked great.
Yeah.
But that is where we go 170, 180, 200%.
Yeah.
Give it your all for everything. Recently, I learned how to do the CSS coding on a website.
Really?
Because there was something I wanted to change.
Yeah.
And I couldn't change it.
Couldn't get it out of your head.
It needed to be done.
Yeah.
But then to do it, I needed to learn how to use the coding on my website, which meant that I then had to watch 2 hours of coding videos online and do it. And I did it.
Yeah.
But that was 2 hours I could have been kind of, putting to better use. Shall we say?
Yeah, doing the job.
Yeah.
I mean, I could talk about it. I could talk about this for a full episode, but I just don't want it to become entirely about that. But so I think we'll just put that to bed there. But okay, so I'm gonna segue off this because, like I said,
you're great at these segues.
Yeah, I'm not great at these segues at all. If you're comfortable talking about this, what are some or one of like the biggest mistake you've made in wedding photography, in the job?
So quite deeply not believing in myself enough.
Okay.
That's for a start. I think not having the self-confidence to push myself earlier.
Yeah.
Because
in which way, like just
pricing, the ability, even just learning, the want to learn.
Yeah.
I didn't have that.
Yeah.
I didn't have that when I started out. I was fairly confident at the level I was shooting. But wrongly so. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was charging £250 for a day. It wasn't a lot of of money in that I should have been like super experienced.
Yeah.
But I think not having the want to learn more in the very early days, and probably the arrogance of someone who was quite young, thinking that I knew what I was doing, and just going by on my ability to wing it. Because that's a positive. We wing it. We wing it well. We wing it well.
We do wing it well.
And
wing it well.
So emotionally, I think for me, that's probably one of my biggest mistakes, is not believing in myself sooner or giving myself kind of a push enough. But then more recently, I missed a flight.
Really?
That was a big mistake.
What for? For a wedding?
For a wedding.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Were it like your fault?
I got there. No, it wasn't my fault. But,
okay.
Well,
that's better then, isn't it?
Yeah.
The flight left without you. Is how you should have phrased that?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it was. I left with 4 hours before I had to be at the airport.
And didn't make it?
From an airport that was 90 minutes away. And then it took me 2.5 hours to get through security.
Oh, no.
And I think, mistake. Was it my fault? Could I have left earlier? Yes. But really, I don't think it would have made much difference. So that was tough. But then using my super quick, oh shit, brain, immediately, the moment I watched them close that, I was from here to you away.
Yeah,
and they just closed the door.
No, I've been there. I've been there too.
And I was in Manchester, and I immediately, on my phone, found a flight from Leeds that was in 3 hours.
Oh, brilliant.
Just drove from Manchester to Leeds, and I got there only 30 minutes late for the welcome party. It wasn't even the wedding. It was... Yeah, it was
amazing.
That was probably the biggest whoops on a wedding day for me ever.
That's not even that bad, because at least I got there. You got there.
Yeah. And I had 2 other shooters out there as well. So but that was the biggest stomach churn.
Oh shit!
That would have been a big if there hadn't been other flights. And because we're up in the north, it was difficult. I was panicking because we don't have as much flight choices or airport choices.
Yeah, that's it.
But woohoo to Leeds. Oh, there was the time that we were all sat on a golf cart and someone drove off and the bride fell off, if you remember that one. Me? Yeah.
No? Someone fell off?
The bride.
Oh my God, yeah.
Have you just remembered that?
I just remembered, you literally just saw my eyes go, wow. Yeah. I totally forgot that happened.
So that was in terms of a wedding day whoops.
Yeah.
That was
oh my God, I totally forgot about that.
That was probably one of the when it wasn't funny when it happened, it was funny afterwards.
She was fine though.
She was fine.
She was completely fine.
I
don't think she probably were fine, but she played it off pretty well.
I think she was. She had a big poofy dress to land on. I think gave her a lot of padding.
Yeah.
But I think,
who was it? Was it the groom that drove off?
Yeah.
Or was it there was someone driving it?
No, it was the groom.
It was the groom?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So in terms of crazy things, not crazy things, or bad things that have happened on a day, that was probably one of the worst. Yeah. The bride just...
Yeah. What are some of the things that you're looking to improve in your business? This can be a personal thing or just on a broad spectrum, an actual business thing.
Improve upon... I'm always looking to improve. So I'm always kind of watching videos and, editing wise, I would love to improve maybe my consistency in terms of how I see my work. It's not necessarily, I think my work is consistent, but I think I would like to become more confident in how I see my work.
Yeah.
I think that's the imposter syndrome. to improve upon?
That's something, just to touch on that, I feel like I really struggle with that as well. Like, I don't think anyone that I've ever spoken to will probably... Like, I don't know if it's like a fear of being like seen as being like arrogant or cocky, but like I would love, I've said this before, but I would love to see my work through someone's eyes that's not in the industry, and I would like to see it through someone else's eyes that is in the industry to know what, like, because I think in your head you have being
perceived again.
Yeah, you place yourself within these categories, and you think, I'd love to know where I would view myself in this category, like, because I just view my own work as being like always inferior to other people's. I'm always like, mine's never as good as that. I'm not as good as that. But then you'll have messages.
I'm not nodding thinking, yeah, it isn't, by the way. No, I'm nodding thinking...
Yeah, I agree. I know what you're saying.
I'm not nodding away like, it definitely is inferior. No, I mean, I totally see that.
No, I know what you mean, yeah. So it's one of those, so yeah, that's my little
I think the interesting thing about imposter syndrome is if you take it and you flip it and you... Because I struggled with it a lot. And there's all these people who say, oh, get rid of other photographers on your Instagram or other videographers on your Instagram and things like that. No, it's a community for me. So it's really important that I don't do that. But also I flipped it and I think, okay, the moment I stop thinking that I'm not good enough is the moment I don't care enough to be doing this.
Yeah.
I think if you are constantly thinking, I want to be better at this than I am, because that's another way to flip it. It's not thinking I'm not good enough. It's how can I be better?
How can I improve?
And,
well, it's staying in that to me is staying in your own lane as well. Like, I feel like comparisonitis just like kicks in, and the moment you start comparing to other people, you're never going to win that battle. No. You just never ever, because there's always there is always going to be someone that is above you, and there's always going to be people below you. You're always going to be in this like weird middle area, and I think the moment, like you say, if you just start thinking, I need to focus on me and just where can I improve?
Yeah, and I know it's easier said than done. Yeah. And I heard a great tip from somebody years ago. It's if you're ever feeling like you've got imposter syndrome,
don't.
Just don't.
Just
Easy
don't.
as that. Find a friend who's feeling the same. Tell them how awesome they are, and all of a sudden it's like your brain is like, wait a minute. I'm also awesome because this person's my friend and we have similar work. And like, you know, if you're sat there telling a friend, your work, what do you mean you think your work's that's rubbish work or that's, you know, awful editing and things like that? That looks great to me. And it's almost that little trick in your brain where it's like, hang on a minute, it's the flipping it into positive thinking. Because it is a choice being able to think positively like that. It's an active, you have to push,
you have to work on it.
You have to work. It does not come naturally to a lot of people. And I think I've just spoken about flipping ADHD to something positive. I talked about flipping imposter syndrome to something positive. You have to try. You have to try and see it positively. It's if you stop caring enough to not think that your work is good enough, then you don't care enough about your job. I think, in the work that we do especially. I think it's a push to learn more, it's a push to want more. And if you do nothing about it, then that's, you know, you're making an error.
It's a constant, where am I going to go next? Like, I need to work on this, I need to work on that.
But I mean, I think in terms of, I would like to improve kind of like leads in terms of like getting like more like leads for the clients that I'm looking for. I think I do get a lot, but I also get a lot
of not
chances. You know, and I say chances. If you don't ask, you don't get. You don't know what somebody charges. You know, you are going to get people who are going to come and say, we've got a budget for. I'm being ridiculous here. Like, we've got a 9-hour wedding. Our budget's £300. You know, but I would love to see more leads come my way and kind of figure out how to generate that myself. I really, really would rather.
I mean, that's a great answer. I think that's really being honest as well, because I feel the same. I feel like it's
a weird climate.
It's easy to rely on, like, for me, it's easy to rely on photographers, or it's easy to rely on planners, or like venues, or other videographers. Like, it's easy to make connections and rely on that. But I think, especially at the minute with all those people that I listed, so venues, planners, photographers, and other videographers, at the minute, people are struggling, I think.
It's a quiet year.
It's been quiet this year. It's quiet for next year.
Busier, but still quiet, I think.
I think a lot of the people that are busy are probably in, like, and this is no disrespect or dig, I think a lot of people that are really busy or doing all right are in a sort of mid-low end.
I agree.
I'm going to say so.
And there will always be exceptions. I know people who are, who are saying they're fully booked. I mean, fully booked to them is 18 weddings.
It could be less. Sometimes it could be less.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's really subjective. It has been a quieter year. The moment engagement rings. I think engagement ring sales were down last year, which means consequently weddings this year and next year are going to be down and they're going to be low.
And I think,
it's like the bottom of the house of cards. And once that one bottom kind of set topples, the rest of us just come crashing down.
Yeah. So a lot of people that we know in the industry, I feel like, are at a similar level-ish. And I feel like a lot of other people have now moved into that area,
that level. It's kind of like a place. It's kind of like a group. I don't like the words like levels because it kind of separates people.
But you know what I'm trying to say.
I do. But I agree. It's you're in that network of people who are shooting similar weddings.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people are in that network. Then
no, levels are right. But I know. Do you know what I mean?
I know. It does kind of make you sound a bit like, I guess, like, I'm higher than you. But I don't mean it like that.
No, I know you don't. No.
I mean it in terms of like, if a lot of people are at the same standard, then it makes it really difficult. Because the pricing in the market that we're in is now almost, it's like I guess, and this sounds really stupid, but what I'm visualising is like when all of a sudden middle class became a thing, and it weren't working class, it weren't upper class. There's now like a middle class of like wedding videographers that I feel like there's the creme de la creme, there's the best of the best, and they'll never be affected because they're in with the best of the best. They kind of have their own little clique and they keep themselves to themselves. Yeah,
we're talking like celebrities, like OK Magazine vibes, big weddings, like huge £300,000, £500,000 budget weddings.
Yeah. Videographers that are charging like 20k and stuff like that, like big like budgets. And then I feel like the market now is huge in the middle. Like we were talking earlier about like how we don't like to say luxury and like mid and luxury, and I think all that is kind of like, in my opinion, smushed together.
Yeah, I agree. And
I think we're all in this like pool, and there's only so many weddings that's happening, which is what you've said earlier, less and less are happening, less and less people get engaged. So I think that now this market, I think the best market is actually being at the minute, it's probably like doing and this is no dig, but doing the barn weddings for like 1,200. You're always gonna book at that, and there's lots of them happening.
Yeah, but they're going to be doing 4 times the weddings.
This is
5 times the weddings that we are.
This is the downwards. This is the down to that.
I'll never go back to that.
I don't want to do that. I don't think it's something that's not particularly my approach anymore. Like I don't think I could handle shooting how I shoot now. Yeah. I don't think I could manage doing that.
You're not just rocking it with one camera anymore. No,
this is it.
On a wing and a prayer, hoping that
it's like quite intense coverage that I'm delivering and giving to couples. So it's
which requires intense post work.
But I feel like it's just the market. My point is, I guess, that the market I feel is very more than ever. Yeah, it is really competitive because everyone's sort of fighting for the same weddings, I guess. But,
I agree. I don't know though whether that's just because it's the market that we're in. Has it always been like that? Because we've come from a slightly different, part of the market, moved into a slightly higher pricing band. Are we just seeing that differently now?
It's partly that, I think.
Because are we just seeing how it's always been?
Yeah,
it's not always been. We haven't always been there. We've been charging £1,500 and booking 40 weddings a year, 50 weddings a year, or whatever. Exaggerating there, but you know what I mean. Versus then choosing to only take on 15 to 20 a year.
Yeah.
To increase client experience.
Yeah.
To give yourself a social life. Yeah. Have weekends in the summer again.
Balance.
God forbid, go on a family holiday in the summer. A lot of people moved from, like you were saying, that kind of like slightly lower budget price wise.
Yeah.
A lot of people jumped up really quickly.
Yeah. I think a lot of people did it at the same time, and that's what's also made it sort of feel full.
I think there was a massive increase in prices in the market overall. Florals went up hugely.
Yeah.
Venues put their prices up, and it comes down to the cost of living.
Yeah.
And venues that are, for example, I know one venue that was costing them £2,500 to heat, the venue for a month.
Yeah.
It's a huge place.
Yeah.
And it's now costing £8,000. And that's the cost increases that are then passed on to the couples.
Yeah.
I think wedding prices have massively jumped up. I think that it's brought the UK in line with Europe and the USA.
Yeah.
In terms of what
it's getting close, very close.
I think that what we're expected to be paid for the job that we do, especially those of us who have to be there on the day. I'm talking the florist, hair and makeup, photo, video.
Yeah.
You know, we offer a really, really, really good service, most of us, but for a price.
Yeah.
That comes at a price.
Yeah, of course it does.
And I think shooting less for the same amount of money as we were making 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I'm not mad at that.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at that at all.
Yeah.
My perspective on working and how much I want to work's changed hugely since COVID, and we all killed ourselves for a year and a half by overworking. I do think, though, this quiet period this year, and think early next year as well, it will see a lot of people out of the industry. People who were possibly already ready to give up. Yeah. People who have burnt themselves out post-COVID, or people who jumped into it during COVID who probably aren't ready to be shooting the weddings that they've now been booking. Yeah. And their work isn't necessarily up to the standards. And I am not specifying about anybody here. This is just my opinion. Yeah. I think in every market, there is always a dip. Yeah. And that is it's such a natural occurrence in any kind of, whether it's, I don't know, a car manufacturing industry. There was a period, I think it was like a year or two ago, where car manufacturers were trying to buy back cars from people because they were struggling to make meet demands. And then it'll lull for a little bit. The housing market does the same. Yeah. It's so normal, and we will see it again. You know, it's going to pick back up and it will dip again. Yeah. Whether or not it's going to be another global pandemic that does it, I don't know. But it is such a normal thing for it to dip. And I think just plow through, do what you can. If you have to drop your prices, drop your prices. If you have to do that to survive, if you have to, knock £500 off to knock it off.
That's it.
I just think if you have to just get through this, I mean, we did say get through this year at the beginning of this year. I do think it's going to be the beginning of next year is also going to be quiet. Yeah. I'm getting more inquiries now for 2026 than I am for 2025. Yeah. And I just think we just have to get through it. It will pick back up. People will leave the industry. More people will start to get engaged, and it will even itself out eventually. Yeah. That was a really long answer. Sorry.
No, it's good though. It's interesting. And I think I'll add to that. I think personally, a big part of why all this is happening is just a market and like demographic shift. We're coming out of a certain generation of people, and now it's a new generation that's maybe just a different generation, paying differently, booking differently, different spending habits.
There is definitely a change in booking process,
and it does reflect on markets. But I feel like people that are booking now, and this does get chucked around, but it's been true for me all of this year. People have booked me super last minute, like within months, which
I've
before
had weeks.
That's crazy, isn't it? And like before, I would booking out a year in advance, plus people were wanting to get booked in.
Mm-hmm.
They had to save for it. I think like you say, it's different spending habits.
I think a huge part of that as well is you touched on it with the different generation and how they book. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of edging closer to 40 than I am to 30, now. So it's one of those things where I'm definitely seeing a big change in how people, number one, behave at weddings. Yeah. It's the, behaviour at weddings has changed massively. Not necessarily negatively or positively. I've just seen a change. Yeah.
In what way? That's interesting.
People years ago, even up until recently, people wouldn't leave the dinner table until they'd finished being fed.
Yeah, now they're just up and around.
Everyone's up, they're out their seats, they're outside smoking, huge big groups of people, and then courses are being put down and it delays things. And I do think it's generational, massively. Yeah. Yeah. Strangely, the much higher budget weddings that I've been to, they don't do that. Yeah. Everyone sits until they've eaten. You might have the odd person nipping out for a smoke or whatever, but realistically most people are staying put because it was just the manners. And again, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, it's just a different generation of how people behave. Before, people who are maybe my age, a little bit younger, they would maybe find 2 or 3 photographers or videographers, florists that they liked. Yep. they would maybe email those 2 or 3, maybe narrow it down to 2, and then have a Zoom call with 1 first. And then they would maybe make a decision if they're going to have a Zoom call with another one.
Yeah.
Now I'm in sort of like networking groups, referral groups with photographers who, one of them, there's maybe 10 of us in one group. Another one, it's just girls. And there's, I think maybe like 7 or 8 of us in there.
Yeah.
And the amount of times somebody posts a referral in that group, and we've all had it.
Yeah, it's the same for videos, same for us.
And I find it
This is what I meant earlier about
wild.
how like the market seems like so competitive. I feel like because it's good and bad that we're all sort of networking and we are quite pally.
Yeah.
But it's also bad in a sense because you sort of, as anyone would, your competitive edge does kick in, and you know yourself, that person might want that booking, but you also want that booking as well.
Yeah.
But it's your mate. And that's when it gets a bit like, oh.
Yeah, and that has happened a few times. I don't think, for example, Camilla and I are super good friends. We often get the same inquiries.
Yeah.
Sometimes Camilla will get it. Sometimes I'll get it. Yeah. I don't ever feel competitive about it. Yeah, sometimes you feel a bit disappointed.
Yeah.
But I don't ever feel robbed. Or that they didn't deserve that. I've felt it before when I've seen somebody who inquired with me. They got really far down the booking process, and then they've moved on and went with somebody else. And I've thought that was a really bad choice.
Yeah.
For you, not for you. And I've had to see them maybe them posting their wedding photos, and I think,
yikes.
And not that person's a bad photographer, it just wasn't the photographer for them, for their venue. It's just somebody who was maybe cheaper or whatever.
That's all it comes down.
But I'm definitely seeing a big difference in the amount of inquiries people send out to photographers now. People shop around, and don't get me wrong, I love it, but if you were buying a new kitchen, you would not go looking around 10 different providers of bathrooms. You would not take up all the time of the people who work there to then quote you up on the bathroom that you want, and then not choose any of them and just go with the person who did your mate's bathroom. You would not do that.
No.
When people are choosing builders, they maybe get quotes from 2 or 3 people. And then they pick one of them.
It is this huge shopping around thing at the minute.
It's
and
ridiculous.
like I said, we were talking about this recently, there's loads of people just stringing the booking process along, and that's how it feels for us. They might not be feeling like that for them, but for us it feels like they're just stringing it along. Sometimes couples will take months to pay a deposit, and it's like, I can't stress this enough, like how important it is just to pay that deposit, just for the supplier to feel relieved, and you're actually
I can tick that off now.
It's done.
That's in my diary.
I don't have to keep thinking, oh God, like they're not good. What have I done wrong? And it's just like, oh God, have I said something wrong over email or over the Zoom or
I mean, that I can't believe it's something we haven't touched on already.
What
is that constant feeling that your client hates you? If they don't communicate with you, if there isn't an exclamation mark or a smiley face in their email, you think, oh my God, they hate me. And it's the same with booking. I'm going through one at the moment with a friend. We're kind of both, this is a videographer, and we're just waiting for this, somebody to kind of actually book. I think they're going to book. Will they book? I don't know. And I would like to know. And
this seems to be a new thing. It used to be a thing where I'd send out the contract, I'd send out the payment details, bosh. It'd be done within a day or over the weekend. Now it's like weeks and months.
I've had so many recently where they've come back to me and they inquired at the beginning of August, beginning of September. Oh, hey, we had a super busy summer. Just checking.
We've been really hectic
you're
recently.
You're still available for our date. Oh man, I am.
It's a quiet year. Everyone's in the industry's on about it.
I feel weirdly.
It's the principle, though.
I feel weirdly lucky next year because most of my bookings are on midweeks. That I've got at the moment, that are either midweeks or really, really out of season.
That's really interesting.
It's great for me. Because I've got so much more potential.
I think again that's couples though. I think that's
free time.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was saying I have so much more free time on a weekend. If I don't get a booking, I'm like I've got a whole weekend with my friends and family. But also it means I'm available for a lot of inquiries that do come in
last minute. I think that's again a shift in the couples. I think a lot of couples now want a bit of a bargain, and they don't want to pay. They think, oh, not book ourselves an August wedding because it's going to be dearer. We'll go for these
November,
weekdays and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's a different shift as well.
I love a winter wedding.
Yeah.
Love it. I think there's been, like I say, a massive shift, and I do think it's generational. It's now when I say to a couple, I say in an email, I'd love to get a call booked in, and when I say a call me old-fashioned. But I just want like a 10-minute quick chat so you can hear my voice and know
on the
that
landline, please.
Know that I'm not an absolute weirdo. I can hear your voice and we can have a quick chat.
Yeah.
And you think, they seem nice.
Yeah.
They seem nice. I'm going to book them. Or I'm not going to book them.
Yeah.
They seem nice, but maybe not for me.
Yeah.
Now,
we spoke about this recently about the whole Zoom thing. Since COVID.
You call and all of a sudden, it's like, we've sent you a Zoom link. And I'm thinking... And these people want phone. They want the Zoom. They want it to be at 6 p.m. after they're back from work, or 7 p.m.
Yeah.
And it's like,
don't work.
That's not that's not office hours.
Yeah.
It's not office hours. I've got a family.
Yeah.
My desk is currently in a high traffic area, so then I have to then shift everyone into the kitchen while I have a Zoom call with you for you to grill me and read me a list of questions that you've got from Hitch.
Yeah.
and then ghost me.
Yeah.
And they'll do that to 10,
yep,
5 to 10 different photographers.
Yeah.
And maybe pick one of them.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't pick any of them.
Yeah.
And there's a massive shift. Shift. I hate the whole Zoom call thing. I want a quick chat. I want to hear what you've got planned for the day. I want to hear the vibes. And I want to know what you're thinking.
Yeah. Just get a feel.
I do not want to sit down and have an interview at this point.
At
this point.
Yeah. You don't need to at that early stage.
I don't think so.
I only recently started doing that, and I used to do just give me a phone call. I used to just chat to people over the phone.
I still say phone call.
And then now everyone's like, when you say call, they think, oh, here we go. Zoom's kicking in.
Yeah. I've started now saying, look, pro tip. I've started now saying, if you can spare 10 minutes out of your day, I'd love to jump on a call super quick.
Yeah.
Just to have a little chat through what your expectations are. And then people then hear it as okay, I don't need to, because it's a pain for them to take 30 minutes, 45 minutes out of their day.
Yeah.
They then feel like they get back from work.
Especially when they're doing it 10 times as well with other people.
Yeah, I just want a quick chat.
Yeah.
Nothing serious.
Yeah. Come on.
We're not getting married. You're getting married.
Yeah. Let me do my job.
It's a date.
Yeah. Okay, so we've only got time for one more question, and that question is, Emma, in 3 to 5 years' time...
Harrison.
Yeah.
Eye contact.
Yeah.
Quick, look away. So I can think. Sorry.
In 3 to 5 years' time, where do you see your business? What do you want to have achieved? What does that look like?
I think I would love to get into doing some mentoring.
Yeah. It's like more like education stuff?
Yeah. I'm not really great at structure though. Kind of touched on that earlier. Structure isn't great for me. I would love to I've spoken about this to a few photographers recently, start off by doing some like ask me anything power hours.
Yeah.
On the Zoom that I hate so much, or in person if you live closely. I would love to be able to offer, start by offering that out to people. I would really love to kind of feel like I'm imparting knowledge.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I've got a lot to give. I think I do.
Yeah.
I know more than somebody who's new. So that's a bonus. And then also I think I would really just like to continue this really nice balance I have at the moment of work and family life.
Yeah.
I don't want to ever go backwards because it can be greedy. It can be pure greed.
Yeah.
It really can. Yes, am I available for that date? Do I need to say yes to this?
Yeah.
Do I, you've got to guard that yes.
Hard.
Guard that yes with your life, because that yes could then be you've missed your best friend's hen party or 40th birthday, or but you won't know about that until 3 months before. I'm really enjoying this nice balance that this year has kind of partly been handed to us. Yeah. But I also kind of really took it as an opportunity to step back. Yeah. And not feel super, super, super busy and stressed all the time. Yeah. So I'm quite happy in terms of where I am. I don't want to fall back into, if it picks up again, if things start to become busier, I do not want to be shooting 40 weddings. Yeah. That I know that sounds like I'm going backwards there. Like that's where I want to see myself. I want to see myself like having a great balance. That to me is
That's why you get into the job.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Well, partly, not the whole reason.
Yeah,
but you know
definitely.
What I mean?
And I think if that takes me down more of a route where I'm offering more mentoring in a more structured way, then that's great, because I think, you know, it can. I don't really enjoy this whole passive income thing where people are selling courses, you know, brochures, things like that. I find it really spammy. It's not me at all. I think I would need to be with somebody tailored, in person, really, really tailored. So I fancy doing that. I do. I always wanted to be a teacher, and I think I'm good at it. I think I'm good at explaining 100%. Things to people.
Yeah. You'd smash it. I think you'd smash that.
Oh, thank you.
Oh yeah, I think you should definitely look into doing it. I felt there's always like turnover of like fresh new people coming.
Yeah.
There's not many people that have made it like a full lifetime career. Not saying that it can't be done. But yeah, I feel like that you've got to find ways to sort of keep it interesting and keep relevant, I guess, the older you get.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're building a new house at the moment, and we're renovating, but then there's a kind of extension part and lots of sort of development opportunities and potentially space for like studios and things like that in the future. Whether that's something I look into as I'm getting a little bit older, because I don't think this is a job that I could do into my 50s. It's tiring, it's exhausting. But yeah, so if it took me that way, am I particularly interested in studio stuff doing that now? No.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like, that's always been potential with the house build and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, definitely I think like the mentoring side. It's difficult for me to kind of look that far ahead, because I really struggle to see that far ahead. Mentally. Yeah. I'm a very much now. This month, next month. You know, I get clients message me like, oh, I'd love to get a call in for our wedding, which is in March. And I'm like, yeah, we'll do that in Feb's, babes. Like,
gotta do it tonight now. I'm thinking about it. I'm anxious.
Yeah, but like, it's too far ahead for me to think. Yeah. So that question, it is like, that's kind of like the vague outline of like how I want to see myself. Do I want to be super duper busy? No, I don't.
No, yeah.
That's the God's honest truth. I want to still enjoy my job. Yeah. I don't want to have to leave this industry because I've overdone it. Yeah. I've had friends who have burnt out to the point of real depressions. I don't want that to be me, and I really want that great balance. Yeah. So
I think that's a great point to leave it on. It's almost like you've just said, watch this space.
Yeah,
that's kind of what you said.
It's a very vague answer, but it's true. It's how I feel. But
that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming and chatting. It's been, honestly, this is a great episode. I think loads of people are going to find this so interesting. So
I hope so.
Thank you for making this such
waffles.
a epic season finale. There you go.
Yay!
So cheers. Where can people find you, Emma? On socials, website?
Yes, Emma Ryan Photographer on Instagram. And then my website is the same.
There you go. Little
really interesting.
Not like a shy little plug at the end.
I know.
Yeah,
Ooh.
There you go.
Yeah.
But cheers. Thanks so much.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
See you in a bit.
Bye.